thought about opening up a cemetery, but it would be a huge undertaking. Okay. Alright, haven't released a video in a while. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Welcome to another episode of Forgotten Cemeteries in the Pacific Northwest. Today we're at Noble Cemetery, located in Newberg, Oregon, Yamhill County. Alternative names, none that I know of, so let's go meet some of the local residents and hear their story. I'm really excited to show this one to you guys. This is a really pretty cemetery and very out in the country, but a nice one. Little background on this cemetery though. The Oregon Burial Site Guide says no establishment date for it, but the sign out front says 1855, so I guess we'll just roll with that. There's 100 to 500 burials per the Oregon Burial Site Guide. Find a grave showing about 567 memorials to give you an idea. Really, not much in my books besides it being located on the Henry Noble donation land claim. The Nobles appear to be 1845 arrivals into Oregon, so pretty early ones here. I did read that the cemetery has excellent records too, so that's pretty good. Today, if we find everyone we want to, we'll hear some pretty interesting stories hidden back here. We'll meet a half Native American woman who is an 1826 arrival into the Pacific Northwest. Hear the story of a hatchet wielding, brandy drinking woman. Stop by a Civil War veteran who served in the famous 9th New York Regiment. And finally, if your significant other offered you diamond earrings if you'd stop smoking, would you do it? Let's find out. And I thought we'd stop by Henry Jackson Noble's headstone. 1845 arrival into Oregon, and a write-up says his father took up a donation land claim near Newberg, so I'm guessing this area is it. Not sure, but because of them, we have a nice little cemetery to visit now, so thought I'd stop by. Alrighty, what is most likely the most interesting story in this cemetery, and I believe I have the correct headstone, it's matching up with the fine engraved picture, is that of Catherine Kitty Pambrun. Born in York Factory, Manitoba, Canada, and is half Native American. Her father's name was Thomas Humperville, but I couldn't find much on her mother except the simple name Anne in the records, and she was of the Cree Native American people. And, you know, who knows if that's her true name. Her arrival time in the Oregon is a bit odd. I did find someone named Canote Humperville who arrived in Oregon in 1813. He was employed by the Northwest Fur Company, who ran from 1799 until 1821, who apparently was hanging with the powerful Hudson Bay Company. They were like competition for him and doing a lot better from my readings, to the point the two companies had fights and scuffles. I guess the British government had to step in and force them to merge at one point. I also found that Canote married a Salish woman, a Native American people who spoke Salishan, which had like 23 different dialects spoken by various tribes. Sadly today, there's only 3 people left who can speak the language from my readings, so it's becoming quite a bit endangered, if you will, but there are some efforts happening at colleges. Sadly, back to Canote, he drowned somewhere in the Dalles area. I did dive a little deeper and I found that Catherine married Pierre Pambrun in 1838 at Fort Vancouver. And a write-up says Pierre married Catherine, the daughter of a prominent fur trader. I did find her father, Thomas, mentioned earlier, was a British officer, and the article talked about how Catherine was stationed in Vancouver during Christmas, and Pierre was like really excited to visit her. Catherine's husband was kind of a big deal back then. He was a lieutenant in the Canadian Light Infantry. Her husband Pierre was an 1826 arrival in the Pacific Northwest Territory, one of the earliest we've seen so far on this channel, and sadly Pierre fell from his horse in 1841 and died. He is not buried here. However, Catherine here is interesting, and she probably holds the new record for this channel for earliest arrival into the Pacific Northwest Territory. One note I found says 1826. I guess Catherine spoke very little English, but was fluent in French. Apparently she loved the pipe too, but Pierre didn't. To the point he traveled to England, buys her diamond earrings, and makes a deal with her that if she quits, he'll give them to her. She never did quit, and those earrings, they magically disappeared after his death, and the family has no idea whatever happened to him. Alright, I need a new tripod. This one sucks, so sorry about the angle. Here we have John J. Conley, born in 1827 in Kentucky, and also an 1847 arrival in Oregon. Looks like John didn't have much luck with the ladies, as his marriage record shows 1848 being married, then married again in 1860, and then a final time in 1865 to a 20-year-old Sarah Rebecca Minor Conley Christensen. He was 37 at the time. His one wife, Huldah Myers, What a story she is. Take a good look. Hails from Hickman County, Tennessee. Not buried here, but an 1856 immigrant with her first husband, who was a Pony Express rider, actually. He was the first Pony Express rider, relay rider, to go westbound April 3rd, 1860. Shows them settling in California, more specifically Sacramento, I believe. Sadly, William goes poof from history. Only one tiny note that says he died sometime in 1865, with no burial details known. Related to Conley's headstone, let's talk about Huldah's story. So in 1860, John Conley and Huldah hook up. Didn't last long, as John married in 1865 and Huldah married a John Myers, who is allegedly buried at Lafayette Pioneer Cemetery, which we visited a couple years ago, I think, a year or two. This is where things get a bit Jerry Springer-like. Pay attention to the dates here. March 1874 from the Lafayette newspaper. And I think this shows just how small towns were back then. John Myers shows up drunk at a card table. He apparently had trouble breathing and just falls over on the floor. I guess the card players were like, what the hell is this guy doing? He lays there for a few minutes and then eventually gets up. April 1864, a month later, Lafayette newspaper, strange conduct of a woman. Guess who? Huldah. She apparently just goes off on her own, leaves John and the baby, and makes a beeline for the Lone Star Saloon. Orders up a bottle of brandy and says, "Charge my husband." Bartender goes, whatever. She leaves on a ferry claiming she's going to her daughter's house in Dallas, Oregon. I guess it's suspected that she just randomly walked through the Oregon darkness with a bottle of brandy in hand. Must have been a bitchin' night. Her and John Myers separated for a bit apparently before all this happened, and she made a comment that she would leave the children next time. I'm guessing this event might have been it. September 1874, same year. Newspaper title, Head Cut. I guess during this time, John Myers and Huldah were divorced. John visits her, allegedly is like just supposed to fix her fence for her. He finishes up his work and then gets in the house and plays with the children. Huldah did not like this and ordered him to leave the house. But he only did after Huldah attacked him with a hatchet and left a nasty gash in his head. Apparently the newspaper sided with her, stating she was perfectly justified in her actions. So who knows what went down in 1874. Going back to our buddy John Conley buried here, only other info I could find, he had a son who was a deputy in Sprague, Washington, home of the Viking drive-in restaurant. He was transporting a prisoner from Sprague to a town pretty close, and the prisoner hid a gun in his boot. And when Lewis Conley wasn't looking, the prisoner shot him dead. The prisoner hid the body in some sagebrush nearby and fled to Montana, but was caught and convicted of the murder of Lewis Conley, who was only 41 when he was killed. And for all the Civil War fans out there, I found Almon Bartholomew, Company B of the 9th New York Cavalry, aka the Stoneman Cavalry, named after Union General George Stoneman. Been in quite a bit of engagements for my reading, but they are more famous for the Battle of Gettysburg. The regiment claimed that the first shot of the battle was fired by its own Corporal Hodges, but the claim was challenged by the 8th Illinois Cavalry. I think they cleared that up from my readings and they verified the 9th New York did. But if you visit Gettysburg, there's a cool bronze sculpture there to observe in memory of the 9th. Apologies if you can't see. It's very early in the morning and it's sunny today, thank God. Here's the headstone of George Stephen Nelson, born in 1801 in Tennessee. Beautiful headstone, by the way. I'll try to stop during the tour so you can see a little better. Left Tennessee at the age of 18 for Missouri. Ugh. But he did marry a girl named Margaret Crawford, who's buried at this cemetery. Odd with her, couldn't find her backstory. Both her parents died young and the burial details are unknown. However, in 1844, George made the trip to Oregon and lived in Yamhill for a bit. Then in 1848, went to California, but quickly came back to Oregon. Looks like he scored some land in Yamhill in 1847. Side note is that George's grandfather, John Nelson Sr., helped during the Revolutionary War, providing goods. Little cemetery tip: if you're trying to find like a headstone and you're having a lot of difficulty, look at the trees and then look at the find a grave pick, and usually those leaves will be around the headstone if there's like a fall picture, which led me to Jane Turnbow Rowell. Her write-up says that she was an 1852 immigrant into Oregon. However, I couldn't find her or her father on my cheat sheet for some reason. I did find that her father died in 1852 while crossing the Columbia River, sadly. Unique last name, and coincidentally, there's a Turnbow Cemetery in southern Oregon. And our last stop, which may be the most saddest, was of Hans Jensen. I think his family came over from Denmark. One day Hans told his brother that he'll be gone for a few days to hunt a bull in the area. However, his brother searched for him and found only his coat and hat. Unfortunately, he also found a suicide letter. Nearby, Hans was found hanging from an oak tree. Okay, time for the tour. Normally the gate down there is unlocked, per the nice gentleman that I talked to briefly before I came in, but today it's locked for some reason. But there is a little bit of parking down there, and I have a pretty big truck, so I'm confident that you can park there and visit. I'd say this is one of the top 5 cemeteries I visited. I highly recommend it. This was Nelson, right? Yeah, that we talked about earlier. And a cool little display here. Well taken care of. The drive's fun too. Like, I would say go in the summer. Very cool drive. I don't know if there's vandalism over time. Some of the headstones are cracked in half. I did notice the last name Nelson quite a bit. Like I said, top 5 for sure. One individual I could not find, and that was Dr. Westfall. I couldn't find much information on him. I saw doctor in his title, so I became interested. Where he got his training, you know, where he went to school. Sometimes we've seen people don't have any training, they just learn on the Oregon Trail. And there's Hans that we talked about, who unfortunately had a sad ending. I'm impressed by the size of these trees. Jesus. Guess I shouldn't say that in a cemetery, huh? A lot of veterans, as you can see. We just had a holiday. So, a couple American flags planted. This one, U.S. veteran, World War II. So yeah, quite a bit. I'm glad I found this one. This had symbolism for all the symbolism fans out there. Masonic, and then the 3 rings: friendship, love, and truth, I believe. Is it the Odd Fellows? I think it is. I guess that guy belonged to everything. A cool little headstone of Grar. A couple years old. Bird was there. Feels so weird to have a Saturday off. I took a Saturday off. Decided to be normal. Oh, we're already here. You're looking for Catherine Pambrun. I think that's how you say it. Apologies if the family members watching this, like, wow. She's right here, I believe. It's hard to read the writing, but you know, as I said before, the camera like really enhances things, so I believe that's her. What a interesting story and discovery she was. I meant to look up, we've seen that Native American wives, I don't know how common it was, but it seems like Kitty was a nickname for a lot of them. and I don't know why that is. I don't think it's derogatory or anything for a Native American wife. I just don't know. I've seen it like 3 times now for half a Native American wife for some reason, or a Native American wife. So I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe someone out there knows that information. That's a cool one. And there's Conley. I liked their headstone. And I hope you enjoyed the story of Huldah. What a powerhouse she was. Jeez. I'm gonna have to think of a title dedicated to her. I don't know. Hatchet, Wielding, Brandy, drinking woman. I don't know. Lady. Figure it out. Bartholomew is down here. Served in the famous 9th York Calvary. I like that last name. I think there was a field goal kicker for the Ohio State Buckeyes back in the 90s. That last name. Completely unrelated. This is one of the prettier headstones in here. Woodsman of the World. I can't see because the sunlight's blasting in my face. I'm going to lower the camera for you. But in good shape, you can read it. Even I can read it. I hope you like that one. That's a pretty one. The gentleman I met at the gate, I forgot what he said. He said the oldest buried on the cemetery is something I forget now. So I meant to look that up for you guys. This looks like a bunch of new ones. I don't want to disturb them. But I'm sure we can all look it up on Find a Grave. If the gate's unlocked, you can come all the way down here to park. Not at the edge of the road like I had to, but no big to walk. Short walk, but a pretty walk. And I think I was long overdue for a cemetery visit. So it's, I think the thing that's challenging now is I've covered so much in my area that a lot of the cemeteries I want to go to are quite a drive, I'd say. An hour or 2 hours. So be patient with my lack of videos. Not that I'm looking to have 1 million subscribers or anything. I just do it. I hope people get enjoyment out of it. And a little history lesson or something. Oh, I thought that was my doctor. He has a headstone similar to that, like one of those lawn styles, and I have noticed that there are some headstones, it's freshly cut grass and kind of sprayed all over them, so I had to clear one. So maybe that's what's going on. I'll check over here. Never know. Can't even read that one. I think it says Kinley or something. Not there. Wow. High tide or low tide, I'll be by your side. What a cool memorial. What's that say? This anchor was retrieved from the Bering Sea by Captain Swisher. Wow. So, a captain What a pretty badass memorial. That was cool to find. I didn't even know that was here till the tour. So I hope you enjoyed that one. Here's our first anchor. Massive tree here, and there's some seating areas, and that's what I'm saying. If you need to get away from your stressful life, it's a place for you. Probably have like a picnic or something. That's a really cool old school one. Look at the detail on the top. 1880. Wow. Stewart. I don't think we're ever going to find Westfall. Dr. Westfall. Usually I discover people on my tours. But no. Nope, not the Westfall. Thought he'd be over here because, like I said, the behind the grave picture has this weird, unique little grass clover looking thing. I'm like, maybe he's over there, but no luck. Nice park bench. You want to go tanning, it's right in the sun. Hope you guys liked my terrible joke in the beginning. I thought it was funny. But that is the end of the tour. Hope you're doing alright out there. Thanks for watching. Give you a nice view of the mountains. Highly recommend this one. Top 5 for sure. If you have any other recommendations for cemeteries to visit in Oregon or even Southern Washington, feel free to comment below. Stay safe out there. It's finally summer. No more winter or cold rains. Have a good one. Thank you for watching.